Hello everyone, welcome to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host Liam, aka Himvar, and today I'm going to do my summer wrap-up. Okay, so I realize summer's not over yet, but I'm, putting the months into nice little boxes of 3 months, or the seasons rather. And so this is the June wrap-up, July wrap-up, and August wrap-up. These are all the books I read in those 3 months, these 3 stacks. This is June, this is July, and this one is August. So that's a total of 47 books. It was 19, 14, and 14, actually. So I think 19 might be one of my best months ever. I'm not 100% sure on that. I didn't check. I might have beat it in like something like 2017. I read a lot in a lot of those months as well. So, but I'm gonna go through these real quick. You will notice that I actually have, I think, all the reviews out for June, but I just am starting on July's books. So, yeah, so you haven't seen reviews for any of these. So that just shows you how far behind I am on my reviews, and I do 2, sometimes 3 a week. I'll get to those for a second, I guess. So my iPad is gonna die, so let me get through this quickly. My daughter dropped this on the asphalt and then got a nice big old crack all over it, which is fine. The thing is like 7 years old now, so it took a while. Okay, so the first book I read was Rialto the Marvelous, which is the last book in The Dying Earth. This is the omnibus of The Dying Earth. I don't have the individual copies of those books. I would like to get them. They're all rather pricey, so I'd like to get those. But Rialto the Marvelous is essentially a standalone. I know a lot of people, well, I see a lot of different opinions actually. Some people like Kugel's stuff, which are books 2 and 3 a lot more. Other people like books 1 and 4 a lot more. So if you like The Dying Earth but didn't like Kugel so much, you might like Rialto the Marvelous. It's not really connected to the other stories, so you don't need to read 2, 3, or even 1 to read Rialto the Marvelous. It is mostly about a wizard. There are less sword and sorcery elements in it. It's pretty interesting. Like one of them actually takes into outer space, which I think is the first time that happens in a Dying Earth story. And like the first one is, well, the second story is actually probably my favorite, but the first one is kind of wonky as well, because it involves this magician type person who came, I believe, from the past, millions of years in the past, to turn everyone into women, and that is the curse, which is just weird and funny at the same time. But Vance is great, so I'm gonna have the messiest stack of books on my floor, but I actually know where that one goes, so I put it back. Then I read kyben the Unkillables. This is the first Eldros Legacy novel. This is by Todd Fanistock. I actually have the sequel to this already, L'Oreal of the Dark. It's not actually in any of these piles. I haven't read it yet. I will read that soon. It's pretty good, actually. It is epic fantasy, heroic fantasy. It's almost sword and sorcery, not quite there. And it's pretty good. I actually enjoyed it. It's the first Eldros Legacy novel. It's also the first in this series, Legacy of Shadows. And I have a review for it, so you can go watch that if you want. And then I read The Bloody Sun by Marion Zimmer Bradley, who is not a great person. And the story was okay. I enjoyed the first half of it a lot more than the second half. I think I just kind of burned out by that end, or by that point, because it's very character driven, not a lot of actual action going on. I think this would probably work in a shorter form. If the book was smaller, I think it would have been a little better. Alright, and then I read Wilding Hall. I actually listened to this one, by Elizabeth Hand. This was a really good ghost story. It's really short. It's free on Audible if you have an Audible subscription. At least it was when I listened to it. I highly, highly recommend this one. This was awesome. I don't read a lot of horror. I don't know if this would count as horror. Definitely as a ghost story though. Nice and creepy. Very cool, takes place in England, the 70s, with an acid folk band. Pretty cool stuff. Really recommend this one. And then I read Seeds of the Minion, which is the second Eldros Legacy book. This one I didn't like as much as kyben the Unkillable, but it's pretty good. It takes place on a different continent, but this one's by Quincy J. Allen, and first book in the Legacy of Deceit. I do have a review for this one as well. And then I read Our Lady of Darkness. This is, excuse me. It's actually a buddy read for June. This is by Fritz Leiber. This came out in the late 70s, so one of his later novels. I'm not sure, I think it might have won an award or something. It's really good. Again, I don't read a lot of horror, but kind of like Wilding Hall. Highly recommend this one. I don't know. Liber is considered a grandmaster of horror, actually. So he's well known for it among his sci-fi and his fantasy as well. So Liber is just a master of everything, essentially. So go and read this one, Our Lady of Darkness, especially if you like San Francisco. I've never been there, but I got a good feel for the city, especially in the 70s at the end of hippie stuff. So, and then I finished The White Rose by Glenn Cook, the last, I think it's called The Books of the North. Whatever, the first Chronicles of the Black Company, the third book, and so sequel to Shadows Linger and Black Company. And really good. I really enjoyed this one. I think it was probably my favorite of the three, actually. You just gotta read Glenn Cook. It's dark fantasy. It's not quite grim dark, which is fine by me. And really good. I was really surprised by this series. I read these all relatively quickly. I read the first two at the end of May, so I read this one shortly after that. And then I read The Vanishing Tower by Moorcock. This is the fifth book? I think, yeah, the fifth book. No, the fourth book. I'm misremembering. Anyways, it's one of the Outwork Saga books. It's pretty good. It's not the best. It's not the worst. And I liked it. Yeah, the review for like all these I've already got up. So same with Deadly Fortune, the third Eldritch Legacy novel. This was a standalone. It's by Aaron Rosenberg, who I believe is known for some World of Warcraft novels, actually. This one was okay. Didn't keep a lot of my interest. It's kind of YA. I did do a review for this one as well. There are some good things about this one, especially if you like pirates and that sort of thing. So, and then I read Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. This is my first novel I've read by Clarke. My copy's got a huge gaping hole in the cover. But this is cool, standalone. It was fun. It didn't blow my mind like it seems to blow a lot of people's minds. But I thought it was cool. I thought it was good. I thought it was well written, at least, and very enjoyable. And since it's so short and you haven't read anything by Clarke, maybe, or if you have read something by Clarke and haven't read this one, and you like Clarke, assumingly, right, that you should go read it. It's pretty good. And then I read Spellfire, the first in Shangel Saga by Ed Greenwood. This is Forgotten Realms novel. I have a trade paperback here. There's a lot of different versions, or a couple different versions you can get of this novel. This was pretty fun. I like Ed Greenwood a lot. This is the first novel he wrote for the Forgotten Realms. He is the creator of the Forgotten Realms, which is a D&D campaign setting, if you weren't aware for some reason. And I enjoyed this one a lot. And largely because the main character is a heroine who kind of finds herself in some situations that are kind of turning some tropes on their head, specifically D&D tropes. So there's that. Yeah, I left the window open, so hopefully that's okay. And then I read Silent Unicorn, book 3 of 5 of the first like parts of the Chronicles of Amber. There's a second cycle, so the first cycle. This is by Roger Zelazny, of course. This is pretty good. It's really stinking tiny. A lot of this book involves around kind of like a mystery and the siblings talking to each other. I didn't like it as much as The Guns of Avalon, which I just thought was super awesome. But I am looking forward to getting to Hand of Oberon, which I actually just got a copy a couple weeks ago. And then I read Lord of the Clans by Christy Golden. I'm a fan of Christy Golden. I read her Ravenloft novel, one of them. And Golden is a really good author. She writes a lot of Warcraft stuff these days. And if you like Warcraft, World of Warcraft, Thrall, specifically, he was the Horde leader, war chief for a while there, not anymore, I don't think. But I don't actually play a lot of World of Warcraft, almost none. But if you like that stuff, this is actually a pretty interesting tale. It's coming of age for Thrall and how he became the war chief. Then I read Queen of Mid-Ashes. This is a novella in the Suneater universe. You can read this one right after Howling Dark, which is the second book, and pretty stinking good, as you would expect. I actually have the review that already went up for this one as well, like I did a review for The Lesser Devil, the other novella that's out so far that you can read between the first and second books. Christopher Racchio, if you haven't read him, you maybe should think about it, at least. So, and then I read Dune Messiah, the sequel to Dune. I enjoyed this one more than I thought I would. I say that because that's just something I say a lot when I read the first book a while before finally getting the second book. I read the first book about a year before I read this finally, so it's pretty good. It is rather short compared to the first one. I think the third book is back up to a larger size, but this was pretty fun. I didn't think it was going to be all that fun, but there is some awesome stuff that happens in this that I thought made a really fun ride, honestly. Oh, we're finally getting to the end of June here. A couple more books. We got The Door into Winter by Rob Howell, the first in Legacy of Legends, the fourth book in Eldritch Legacy, the last one I've read so far. There are a couple more out that I need to catch up on. This is pretty cool. I like the world building a lot in this one. You definitely see some world building that is related to, I think, Byzantine stuff, Slavic stuff, and like Germanic stuff, and Nordic specifically, I guess. And that's pretty cool. I like that a lot. It deals with giants, if you like giants. And yeah, anyways, Howell seems like he knows his stuff. I did do a review for this one as well, so. And then The Revenge of the Rose, one of the other Moorcock Elric novels that came out later. This one came out in the early 90s. Review's already up for this one, just recently came out. And this one was fun, not as fun as the main 6 novels in the Elric Saga, but still a fun one, nonetheless. Especially interesting on how it kind of retcons some of the stuff talked about in the second Elric novel, or well, the third if you add the Fortress of the Pearl. Pretty interesting stuff. And then finally in June, I read Rise of the Horde, again by Christy Golden. This one is better than Lord of the Clans. This one is very tragic. It is about Thrall's father, Durtan, and other people of the orcs on Draenor before they went to Azeroth, you know, in World of Warcraft and Warcraft and stuff. So pretty sneaking good. Golden really shines in this one. Getting into the second stack for July, the first book I read was Neuromancer by William Gibson. This thing won like 3 awards, I think, when it came out, the Hugo, Nebula, and Philip K. Dick award, I think. So it's pretty wild. I haven't read the others in the series yet, but I liked it a lot. Apparently a lot of people have a problem with the jargon. I didn't think it was too bad, but I guess I technically passed, but it probably would have been something like a C, just to be honest. So I liked it though. I'm gonna put this pile here. Then I finally finished Dragon Wing by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. It's actually, these 2 books are probably the next ones I'm gonna review. I have those ready to go. I just need to actually record the audio for them. And I started this one way back in September of 2021. And then, well, if you watch my content, it kind of hit a low point and I stopped reading a lot of the books I was in the middle of, and Dragon Wing was included. I read this one after finishing Dragons of Spring Dawning, the third, and the Dragonlance Chronicles. I found the writing to be much better quality in this one, but I still wasn't 100% entertained, but the world building is pretty sneaking interesting and kind of worth it just for that. But I definitely will be reading the next books. I kind of just find myself when I'm reading Weiss and Hickman to kind of lose steam as I get further in the book, which is weird because I still look back and I have fond memories about the books, but just like my reviews generally aren't very glowing, at least so far. Hey, I gotta make sure I'm going in the right order because I don't have some books physically. Oh yeah, so one I actually missed for July was actually Impact Winter, which is an Audible exclusive thing. It's pretty good. There's actually coming out with sequels. I didn't know that at the time I recorded Impact Winter, though it was announced after the review came out. So that one was also in there. That was in between Sign of the Unicorn and Lord of the Clans. So let's see. Sea Fae Queen was the third book I read in July. This is the 8th book in the Spiral Wars by Joel Shepard. This is a self-published series, though Shepard had previously published 8 other novels traditionally. I guess he makes more money self-publishing these days. Really good. This is one of my favorite series. Definitely one of my top sci-fi series up there. So I really enjoyed this one. I think I would put this one a little bit better than book 7, maybe on par with book 6, not quite up to where book 4 is, and book 1, which I probably would rate a lot higher on Goodreads if I were to reread that one again. But really seeming good. I'm looking forward to books 9 and 10. It's supposed to be a 10-book series, so. And then I read 36 Streets by T.R. Napper. This is a cyberpunk novel set in Vietnam with a girl who was raised in Australia but is of Vietnamese ancestry. Her mother is also Australian, adopted her. So she also has a twin sister. It's pretty good. It's a standalone. I think likely it'll just become more popular as it gets a little older. It is relatively new. My review for this will come out soon, of course. I really enjoyed it though. It's gritty like cyberpunk is, and it takes place, I think, in Ho Chi Minh. Yeah, I think so. I think I'm remembering correctly. So it does have some Vietnamese lingo stuff in there. I listened to it actually, so that I helped, I think. maybe. It's stinking cool though, and it was fun to go from Neuromancer into this. At least I thought so. And then another sci-fi book I read was Eversion. The review came out for this already because I wanted to get it out before it came out in the US. This is the UK copy. I ordered it through Book Depository so I could read it before it came out in the US, since I didn't want to wait, since there was a few months of wait. There's difference for whatever reason. So Eversion is a fun one, another standalone by Reynolds, the second Reynolds novel I've read, and it's pretty trippy, and it definitely explores some concepts pretty well, better than a lot of other books. I don't want to talk too much about it. You can go watch my review. It's kind of hard not to spoil this one, though it is a very fun book. And then I reread Girzel by Anonymous. This was a reread. It was mostly actually a listen. So this is a hardback. I got this one recently. It's got a quote from me actually on the back of it. I read this one back earlier in the year, but I reread it again, audio, to get prepared for the second book in the series, which I read in August, which I'll talk about in a minute. So great stuff. If you like grimdark, if you like Arthurian Lits, if you like post-Roman history, early medieval, like really, really early medieval, kind of Byzantine time, early Byzantine stuff as well, I'd highly recommend this. And they're nice and short. And then the buddy read for July was Sometime Lofty Towers. The review for this is recorded. It will come out soon. This is by David C. Smith. He's been writing since the 70s at least, and I think his most famous one was probably Oron. He also wrote some Red Sonja books with some other author I'm forgetting right now. But Sometime Lofty Towers is a standalone modern literary sword and sorcery. Really stinking good. I enjoyed this one. It's actually one of my favorite reads of the year. You should go read it, in my opinion, especially if you don't have enough experience with sword and sorcery, or at least modern sword and sorcery, as most people read the classics if they read sword and sorcery at all, which doesn't happen either. So speaking of classic sword and sorcery, I also read The Bane of the Black Sword by Michael Moorcock. This is the penultimate Elric novel, and this one was also pretty fun. I actually can't remember a bunch of what happened because I read it really close to Stormbringer, but I liked it. Review's not recorded for this one yet, so that stuff will come out as it does. And that's kind of the case for the rest of these. These reviews you will probably be seeing up to the end of the year. I have over 20 reviews still to record. I come out with 2 a week, so that comes out to 8 a month. So I'm basically covered until mid-December. So I'm insanely behind, but that's good, because if I start reading a lot less, since I am getting really busy actually right now, then I have a good amount of backlog on reviews, so you won't get no reviews at least. But I did read Rosemary Jones' The Mask of Silver. No, it's just Mask of Silver, that's right, okay. This is a Lovecraftian horror set in the 1920s. It's set on a movie set, as one of the characters goes back to Arkham to kind of film a movie there. A little nefarious, some interesting stuff, otherworldly stuff going on. Pretty good. I like Rosemary Jones. I've read a couple of her books, Forgotten Realms books, but this is what she's writing now. There actually is another book. I'm not sure if the characters in that book are the same as this character, so I don't know if it's in this book how that is. So I don't know if it's a sequel, and I can't remember what it's called, but I will probably read that at some point. I don't have a copy. I actually found this one in a Barnes & Noble, which I wasn't expecting, because I didn't think it would be that popular, popular enough to be in a Barnes & Noble, but I was proven wrong. Whoa, I dropped a book. Oh no. Hey, but the next one I read, actually let me check my list again since I've been failing to do so. Yep, there's one on this list at least that I need to mention. So the next month we'll change it. Crossover is the first of the Cassandra Cousin novels by Joel Shepard. Really stinking good. This is post-cyberpunk as far as I'm aware. It is heavily inspired by Ghost in the Shell. And the main character, Cassandra Cousin, is basically Kusanagi, or rather similar in some ways to Kusanagi from the Ghost in the Shell, which is a movie I watched earlier this year. If you watch my movies I watched recently video that came out a couple months ago, I really, really enjoyed that, and I read this shortly after reading that, and I really, really enjoyed this. It's not actually super heavy action. Shepard, who also wrote Spiral Wars, does a great job with sci-fi and action and AI in general, but this one is pretty interesting. It does give you a lot of lighter moments. There's a lot of moments where it's just conversation, A lot of moments where Cassandra is just getting to know people basically, and I thought it was really cute in a way, but also super badass at the same time. Super fun. I have the second book over there, and there are 6 of them, I think, and so I will definitely be reading the second one soon. And then the next book, the one I dropped, is book 6 in the Fafhrd and Great Master Saga by Fritz Leiber, Swords and Ice Magic. This is when the series starts going downhill, apparently. This one came out in the late 70s. This one, Leiber is aging himself. I actually thought this one was freaking awesome. There's some super cool stuff in here. I don't really see why this one gets a lot of the hate, though, well, okay, I say that. There's a rape scene relatively early in this book, but if you disregard that, it's full of a lot of cool stuff. So I realize that can be a problem, and probably, and you know, I didn't enjoy that rape scene, obviously, but it's definitely full of some good Fafhrd and Grey Master mayhem, essentially. So I really enjoyed this one. But it does change the setting from Lankhmar into Rymile. Alright, the next one I read was Soldrin's Garden, or Lyonesse, first in the Lyonesse trilogy by Jack Vance. First book I read by Jack Vance since Rialto the Marvelous, so this is my 5th book by Vance. Really good. It's Arthurian, but kind of pre-Arthurian, as it takes place on Lyonesse, its name. And that is kind of Atlantis-esque, not really, but this is very fairy tale feeling compared to a lot of Arthurian lit. It doesn't feel like a high romance. It definitely is very fairy tale vibes, and Vance is really good at that. This is really wacky, crazy, tragic. Vance just is a master, a very unappreciated one, but one I mentioned in my modern literary canon tag. And if you like Arthurian lit and you haven't read Vance, you might want to try out Lyonesse or Soldrin's Garden, as this one is also called. So. And then I read Stormbringer by Michael Moorcock, the final of the Elric saga. I love this stinking Michael Wayland cover art. This book was awesome. I don't think it's my favorite still. I think The Sailor and the Seas of Fate is probably still my favorite because that book is just wild. But this is still cool. You see the stakes go from a very personal journey into a very much world-ending journey. Very interesting. Has some pretty dark stuff in this one, and it's just crazy. So Stormbringer is the name of the book, and it's also the name of a sword who plays a very important role here. And we do see Elric's doom kind of come to a head, so pretty cool. And then I reread, again, Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien, the GOAT, as they say. And this was really good to reread again. I haven't actually gotten to the Two Towers yet, but this was fun. Just pure fun to read, and I love The Lord of the Rings. It's my favorite of all time. It's just so good. Just can't beat it. Okay, finally, the last stack. Let me see if I can move it over here a little bit. I realize these stacks are cut off, so you can't see what's on the bottom. That's why you gotta keep on watching, right? Okay, so for August, this is my small stack, but there's 14 books in it, like the last stack. So for August, I read, well, actually it's smaller because I don't actually have a couple of them physically, so I'll get to that in a second though. First one I read was The Warlord of Mars by Edgar Rice Burroughs, whose birthday was actually on September the 1st, by the way. Happy birthday. This one is fun. It's the end of the trilogy, the John Carter trilogy of sorts. There are lots more Barsoom books, but I think you have to get to like the 8th book maybe until John Carter's the main character again. So I'm not sure when I'll get to the 4th book. I ordered a copy of it, so maybe soon, but I got the wrong version of it. That's not the version I ordered. They sent me the wrong one. So if I'm super picky, I want one that matches this. It doesn't match it. So sad. Anyways, this one's pretty good. It might be my favorite of the first 3. It's definitely full of some cliches and some things that people wouldn't like, and I mean, in a way it's kind of sexist, but you know, whatever. It is written over 100 years ago, and the imagination is wild and impressive. So I recommend you go read it if you want some pulp sci-fi that's pulp, you know, not just pulpy because it imitates it. This is the actual pulp stuff right here. Read this. All right, maybe I should move my stack over a little bit. Okay, then I finished A Gathering of Ravens by Scott Odin. This is actually it's not a standalone. Kind of works as a standalone, I think, but there is a sequel. I think a 3rd one coming out soon. This is a historical fantasy novel taking place in Denmark, Ireland, and England, and it is about an orc. It is Odin's attempts to redeem orcs But the orc here is not a Tolkien orc, but he's more of a Conan-esque orc, and which is to say he's kind of like a lot like Conan. Pretty freaking good. It's kind of dark, and I liked it a lot. The two main characters of the orc and this Christian woman, pretty interesting contrast. It's a pretty interesting story. I think Odin did a fantastic job. I'm looking forward to reading more by Odin. Odin actually recently got signed on as an author for Bane, so hopefully he'll gain a little bit more popularity as well. And then I read The Big Time by Fritz Leiber. This is a Hugo Award-winning novel from the late 50s, I believe. This is sci-fi technically. What's really cool about it is that it's almost all a very short period of time in one room. It also has space travel, well, time travel specifically, but you just really hear about it. You don't actually see any of it because it's just people hanging out in a room, and stakes elevate, but it's pretty interesting. It's written in kind of an odd style. It's written first person by some young girl. It's pretty wild. I liked it. I saw one guy's review of it here on BookTube, and he just tore it apart. I think it actually holds up. I think it's very interesting. If you like a lot of modern sci-fi, maybe it's not your thing, but if you want to trip down the good old memory lane of classic sci-fi, Leiber is a grandmaster of science fiction, okay? He's not some, like, amateur, okay? This is some good stuff, in my opinion. It's really wild. It's really different. I dig it, okay? I'm also a big Leiber fanboy, so take that as you will. And then I read The Last Keeper by J.V. Hilliard. This actually was given to me by Hilliard. I think his name is Joe. And this is pretty interesting. It took me a little while to read. This is a epic fantasy series. Definitely hits some of those boxes, and I liked it, actually. It definitely seems inspired by some D&D literature, maybe particularly Forgotten Realms. I don't know when the review will come out with this. I might actually talk to Joe at some point. I'm not 100% sure on that. But it's pretty interesting. So I liked it. I don't think it's a BookTube darling of self-published stuff. I mean, it might be indie published technically, but it's pretty interesting. And then I read The Symbol's Gift. Oh wait, yeah, I need to make sure. Okay, yeah. Okay, The Symbol's Gift by Lynn Abbey. I'm a fan of Lynn Abbey. If you haven't heard of Lynn Abbey, go read Lynn Abbey. This is one of two, I believe, of her Forgotten Realms novels. This one is about the symbol. Surprise, surprise. It is a magical woman who is in charge of a country. She's named the Witch Queen of Aglarond. It's pretty interesting. You get a good look at her character. If you want any character to become a lot more human, a lot more realistic, even someone who is in a fantasy world, especially one as fantastic as Forgotten Realms, you get Lynn Abbey to help you, because Lynn Abbey, I can just say the general vaguety of her character work is unrivaled, but I just want to say that I've never read any other author, and I've read lots, that matches, or at least even gets close to the style of Abby's character work. She's just very interesting. I need to think about it more to put it in better words, but she does a very good job of taking these characters and putting them on your level. And I think in regards to that, maybe the stakes become less epic, but they can become a lot more personal, and you are able to relate to someone. And in some ways, you're not able to relate to them. I'm reading one book by Abby right now, and the character is one of the main characters is completely annoying, but he's also very realistic, right? And so in some ways, I think it can hurt her. That's probably why she's not insanely popular. She is still alive, actually. But I look forward to reading a lot more Abby in the future. Anyways, and then I read The Best of the Realms 2, stories from Edward Greenwood, who is the creator of Forgotten Realms. This is a collection, and it's pretty good. It actually has the first ever Forgotten Realms story in here. It has a lot of other good ones as well. And if you like Ed Greenwood, or if you want a taste of Ed Greenwood, I think short stories are always a good one to go with. And since this is all Ed Greenwood, then maybe this one's a good one to go with. He introduces each story too, which is pretty cool. And you get to see a lot of his characters. I really like this. I really like it a lot. I'm a big fan of Ed Greenwood. I talked to him on the channel. He's one of the authors I've read the most by. Ed Greenwood, everyone. Speaking of Ed Greenwood, I read another book by Ed Greenwood. It's Crown of Fire, second in the Chandler Saga. I read the first one, Spellfire, if you remember back in June. This one is also good. It is a hardcover as well. So that's pretty interesting. But it is a fun sequel. Again, turns a lot of things on its head, but it's mostly Chandra being sick of the adventure that she asked for. So pretty good stuff. I can't say much because it would spoil the first book. And then I finally read the second book in the Thieves World series of anthologies, Tales from the Vulgar Unicorn being a tavern in Sanctuary, which is the city, shared world setting in the city of Sanctuary. I can't speak Sanctuary. That all these authors contribute to. This is edited by Robert Lynn Asprin. If you get the new prints, I think it also says edited by Lynn Abbey. Again, Lynn Abbey, woo, everyone. Hey, and they were married actually at the time these were coming out, but this was better than the first one, and I thought the first Thieves World collection or anthology was really stinking good. This one had a story by Janet Morris, who I've never read anything by, also had a story by David Drake, who I've never read anything by, and also had a story by Philip Jose Farmer, and that A. Von Vogt, or whatever his name is. They're all exceptional. I think my favorite was probably Morris, Janet Morris. I went out and bought several books by Morris after reading her story. Really stinking good. If you like fantasy, if you like thieves, it is called Thieves World. If you like character building, especially from this came out in 80, I think, 1980. So classic, if you want to call it that. I don't like that word. Anyways, but really, really, really good stuff. I highly recommend this. I hope it gets another reprint. It got one actually in the early aughts, but not enough people enjoy this, and I think a lot of people, even modern readers, would enjoy this. This is great stuff. This is great fantasy. And then Baden Hill by I Anonymous, the second book in the War of the Wrath. Review came out for this one recently, actually, since it just was coming out. I got an arc, technically. This is it. I recommend this one as well. I can't say a lot, though. I could say the first book, Girzel, focuses, I would say, a little bit more in Africa, the northern part of Africa. This one focuses a little bit more in Britain. And we also are getting more Byzantine stuff added. The prologue, or epilogue rather, maybe it might just be the last chapter, I can't remember. It looks like it's an epilogue. It doesn't have a chapter title for it. Introduce some interesting stuff. So this is really good. I'm looking forward to the third book. I think it's called The Curse of Dido. So yeah, kind of like the stuff I said for Girls. We'll read this one though. It's also the second book. Oh, I realized I skipped one. Let's see, after The Best of the Realms 2 and before Crown of Fire, I actually read Ashes of Man, which I don't have a copy because it comes out in December. That was an arc. That review will go up soon as well because I'm trying to get the arc reviews out first. And that was really good. It's the second part of Kingdoms of Death, so the fifth in the Sun Eater. Really, really, really good. Different than Kingdoms of Death, different than the other books. If you like the first four books, you'll probably like this one. If you're going in thinking it might be some triumphant thing, kind of like the third book, or maybe even a little bit like the second book, prepare to be disappointed, because it's not, but it's really good. So you should read it still. And then I read, after Baden Hill, Knight in Name of Swords, the final book in the Fafnir Monster Saga, as written by Fritz Leiber. There's actually one pastiche novel out that I'm going to read at some point, but it's the end of the road. Not the greatest thing. This came out really late in Leiber's life. Turns the sexual content up into like erotica levels. But that being said, there's still some good Fafnir and Grey Mouser goodness in here, and it was really sad to see these folks go. It was interesting to see them age, see them have kids even, and generally don't see your heroes doing that, especially sword and sorcerer heroes. And I love this. I love this series so much. I guarantee I'll find myself reading the first 5 books many times throughout my life. These books are amazing. So anyways, Leiber, may you rest in peace. I love you. So, and then I read Waylander by David Gemmell, the third David Gemmell novel. I've read the third Drenai novel, though the first, chronologically, this is my cool cover. First American release, puts it as the second Drenai novel. I don't know why, but you know, whatever. I would recommend reading this one after Legend, at least. It doesn't really matter if you read Beyond the King Beyond the Gates, though. I didn't enjoy this one as much as the other ones, though that may have been because I listened to it. I don't know. It's still really good, though. I mean, it is Gemmell after all. It is Drenai. I don't feel like there could be a bad one. Great heroic fantasy. It kind of bridges the gap between earlier stuff like 1970s heroic fantasy with like 1990s heroic fantasy. This stuff came out in the 80s. So I'd highly recommend you go read Legend. It's probably one of the best debut novels of all time. Legend is amazing. Okay, then the other novel I don't have, comes out in November, is Empire of Exiles by Erin M. Evans. I've read 7 of her other novels, the only 7 she has published, so I'm a fan. And this is the first in a series. It's being published by Orbit. I think a lot of you might like it. If you're watching this video at this point, I'd be surprised though. It's pretty good. That review actually would have just gone up after this video, or before this video, a couple days before this video. It's not up as I'm recording it, but it will be up tomorrow. Anyways, really good. Go watch the review. And finally, the last book I finished in August, so for my summer wrap-up, is The War God's Own. I have a review for the first book in the series, Oath of Swords. This is by David Weber. This is so cozy. I felt so at home reading this book. I absolutely loved it. It's absolutely what I needed to bring me into September, bring me into autumn, even though I know autumn doesn't start for a couple weeks at least, technically. So good, even better than the first novel, Oath of Swords. I'm really looking forward to the third one in the series. I already have a copy because I bought them all at once, actually. I found them at a used bookstore. And I'm super excited for the third one because this world just felt like home when I read it. And it doesn't mean it doesn't have epic stuff. Still got some pretty gruesome and awesome combat scenes, almost sword and sorcery type scenes. But overall, it kind of gives you a D&D feel. And it's just cozy. I love this book. I don't know what it is. I just love this book. It might make it onto my favorites of the year, but some of these other books mentioned almost certainly will as well. So that is it. 36 minutes in, folks, and we got to the end of the, was it 47? Yeah, 47 books I read. Okay, I say that's it. I also do weekly updates. And so I've been going over like short stories I read, so I didn't have to mention them in this video since this video was going to be long already, I knew. But a few of short stories I read before I started doing my weekly updates was Trip Trap by Gene Wolfe. I need to read more Wolfe, but Trip Trap was awesome. If you like Elder Race, which was nominated for a Hugo, I realized the Hugo Awards, I think, just went out today. So maybe it won. I have no clue. Maybe it didn't. It was pretty good. Trip Trap is even better. Okay, and that's the book that inspired, that's the short story that inspired Elder Race. And then I read At Moonset, Black Cat Comes. It's the first Gord the Rogue story. Came out in Dragon Magazine, issue 100, by Gary Gygax. Pretty good, pretty interesting. It takes place after the first novel, actually, but it came out a month before the first novel. So it's a short story. There's a couple of other short stories found in an anthology, another one in a magazine, and then most of the short stories are in the anthology or collection, Knight Errant. So there's that. And then I also read the story Cyberpunk by, what's his name? Bethka? I'm not sure. The guy who coined the term cyberpunk with the short story. It's not 100% cyberpunk, actually. It came out before Neuromancer, but it is kind of cyberpunkish. It's definitely interesting. It's like, it's cyber and punk. Put a hyphen between it, and I think it'd fit better with maybe what you're thinking, because it doesn't exactly fit cyberpunk. But if you put cyber -punk, maybe they would portray a different idea to you. If you haven't read it, I'd recommend go read it. You can find it online. It's not that long. I will say that I did DNF one book. I don't DNF a lot of these. I will maybe go back and finish it someday. I was a little over halfway, actually. That is The Return of the Native by Thomas Hardy. I like his poetry a lot, so I'm kind of saddened that I think it's just a little too long. Actually, when I read the prologue last year, I thought that was one of the most purple things I ever read. Like, he was just spouting out words just so he could get paid more. And that might have been the case, because I think this was serialized, actually. So he did get paid by word, I'm sure. So I just thought it was a little excessive. I didn't think it needed to be as long as it needed to be. So I'm not going to go out of my way to read an abridged version. I don't know if there are any. I did like some of the things. I did like some of the atmosphere for sure in it. But again, I think it's a little long-winded for the story that it seems like it's trying to tell. So anyways, that's my one DNF. Oops, whatever. So anyways, it's Liam's Lyceum. If you stayed to the end, thank you for sticking around. Let me know if you read anything that stood out amazingly, or if you want to tell me, you can list all the books you read in, those 3 months or whatever. But let me know if anything stood out. Let me if anything on the huge list of books I read stood out to you that maybe you would like to read or you have read and really enjoyed. But this has been Liam's Lyceum. I will catch you next time.